Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here bringing you a summary of the last 48 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. So it's currently the eve of November 15th, 2023 in the United States, the morning of November 16th, 2023 in the Middle East. And I will note that while this report should be longer because I'm covering 48 hours, my voice does in fact sound like this. This is not a volume problem, so we'll see how long the voice lasts. Beginning with the aftermath, the hostage situation, the kidnapped Israelis that are held in the Gaza Strip. In the last 48 hours, there were many reports of substantial advances towards a deal that is being mediated by Qatar. The head of the Shabak, that's the equivalent of Israel's FBI, is currently in Egypt and has been there for quite some time in the last 2 days, discussing the fine-tuning points of the deal. According to Reuters, the deal is going to include the release of 50 women and minors that are held by Hamas movement in exchange for Palestinian women and minors in Israeli prisons, alongside a 3-day pause in the fighting. Hamas originally demanded a 5-day pause in the fighting. Israel only agreed to 3, and thus Hamas has changed its initial stance. It was going to release 80 women and children to 50. According to Channel 13 in Israel, the points that are still being negotiated are the family situation in the Gaza Strip, the release of mothers along with children, in situations where there are siblings that are over 18 and releasing them along with the family. Israel says it's not going to let families be torn apart. In addition, Hamas is claiming that some of its people are being held by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and it cannot speak for them. Israel is rejecting this and saying that Hamas has to negotiate for both groups. In addition, there are different stances regarding the extent of the pauses. Hamas is trying to say the pauses should include the entire day and or more days. Israel is recognizing this is very important to Hamas, and thus it is trying to squeeze on that end as well. In addition, there are different reports regarding how the phases of the exchange are going to be. According to some reports, Israel is going to pause its fire only after the first hostages are released. Hamas is in turn requiring that Israel first pause its fire and then it will release hostages. That is still being negotiated. According to the Israeli Prime Minister's wife, she sent a letter today to the First Lady of the United States stating that one of the female hostages in captivity gave birth in captivity. According to reports, this is a Thai citizen that was kidnapped from Israel. And a final report regarding the hostages, the leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Ziad Nahaleh, stated that his organization may not be part of this hostage deal and it may wait for better terms. I remind everyone the Palestinian Islamic Jihad announced at the beginning of the war that they are holding upwards of 34 hostages. Moving on to the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip, in the last 24 hours, there were substantially less rockets and missiles fired. However, in the 24 hours before that, there were substantial barrages. Rockets were fired towards the southern parts of Israel, surrounding areas of the Gaza Strip. There was direct hit in Ashkelon and Sderot, and there was also a direct hit in Tel Aviv, where one person was badly injured. In addition, after coordinating partial evacuation of the Shifa hospital, the IDF moved into the hospital 2 days ago. It moved into the hospital into a specific area where intelligence had reported that there are Hamas activists and or Hamas headquarters and or weapons caches. Different reports say different things. The operation included, alongside confiscating all of these materials and arresting several Hamas members, also transferring incubators, food, and medical supplies to the hospital. In addition, the IDF spokesperson stated that, like in other hospitals, the military had waited specifically several days until they had accurate intelligence regarding where Hamas was operating in the hospital. Only then were they going to move in. Reports indicated that the IDF had pulled out of Shifa last night. However, there are since then other reports that they have moved into Shifa again, and that there are bulldozers that are currently removing cars from the entrance of the hospital so that heavy military vehicles can move in. In addition, the IDF reported that it successfully took over the Palestine outpost in northern Gaza Strip. This is one of Hamas's most important outposts. It includes training facilities and access to different tunnels and critical infrastructure. The defense minister in Israel, Yoav Gallant, gave a press conference yesterday. In it, he stated that we are still in the second phase of the war, but importantly, he added, we are talking about months, not a few days. It will include the north of the Strip as well as the south. Hamas is being dismantled. It is true today for the north and will continue wherever the movement is. So this is the first time that an official in Israel is referring to the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. And possibly relating to this, the IDF called on Palestinian residents in the southern town of Han Yunis for the first time today to begin evacuating. The IDF specifically distributed leaflets in the neighborhoods of Karara, Huza'a, Bani Suhaila, and Abbasan. And in the leaflets they stated, I'm quoting, Hamas actions compel the IDF to operate where you live. The IDF does not want to hurt you or your family. For your safety, you must evacuate to, and they designated specific areas. This is the first time that the IDF is calling on people in the south to evacuate, which may indicate further expansions of the IDF in the coming days or weeks. I remind everyone that the IDF initially called people to evacuate the north of the Gaza Strip on October 13th, and it took almost 2 weeks later, till October 26th, until the IDF actually carried out its invasion. In other reports relating to the fighting, Ahmed Andur, who is the head of Hamas's Northern Brigade and a main figure in the group, the report is somewhat ambiguous, stated that he has not made contact with his superiors since Saturday. His condition is unknown. The IDF has not reported he was assassinated. Hamas has not reported anything. I cannot confirm anything beyond that report. Regarding casualties, the IDF has reported 6 soldiers that were killed in the last 48 hours, bringing the total number of soldiers killed since the invasion to 53. The Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip is reporting upwards of 11,500 Palestinians that have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began. In these, they're including upwards of 4,700 minors. Importantly, since I get asked every so often about using figures from the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip, Defense Minister Alon today of Israel confirmed the reports of the hospitals that are associated with the Palestinian Health Ministry regarding the number of people that are dead tend to be fairly accurate. Moving on to some of the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, the World Health Organization is examining the possibility for an immediate evacuation of Shifa Hospital. In addition, UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Work Agency, today issued a warning saying that its fuel is going to run out in 2 days, and this will mean shutting down water desanitation plants as well as hospital in the south of the Gaza Strip. After this announcement was made, the United States leveled heavy pressure on Israel to allow fueling options in the Gaza Strip for UNRWA, and Israel has agreed to have refueling stations for UNRWA trucks in the Rafah crossing. This is the first time that Israel has agreed to allow any fuel to enter the Gaza Strip, and is referring right now to 24,000 liters of fuel. In addition, it was reported today that the IDF has opened up another humanitarian corridor in Jabalia, that's a city in the north, for Palestinians to evacuate down south. And in addition, the IDF spokesperson reported that the Al-Quds hospital has been completely evacuated, adding that there is a possibility that in the evacuation of Rantisi hospital, several hostages were moved out of Rantisi southward as well. So the IDF has reported that that they have some evidence that some hostages were held in Rantisi hospital, and possibly as part of the evacuation of the hospital, the hostages were smuggled out down south. A total of 91 trucks are reported to have entered the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, carrying food, water, and medical supplies. Moving on to the West Bank, there's continued back and forth between the Palestinian Authority and Israel regarding the funds that Israel is supposed to transfer to the Palestinian Authority. This is a large sum of the Palestinian Authority's budget comes from Israel due to deals that date back to Oslo. Since the war broke out, Israel has not transferred over the funds, and after international pressure, it agreed to transfer over the funds, but it deducted the portion of the Gaza Strip. As a result, the Palestinian Authority refused to accept the funds. Now they're demanding all the funds. Israel's refusing, and that is the current situation. In the last 24 hours, 28 people have been arrested in the West Bank. Of them, 20 are Hamas activists. Specifically, Hussein Mohammed Abu Quaik, who's a leader in the Hamas in the West Bank, was arrested in the Al-Birah village, and there was reports of a lot of IDF activity in the areas of Nablus and Jenin. In addition, 2 days ago, it was reported that 7 Palestinians were killed in the town of Tulkarem in a 15-hour operation of the IDF in which a bomb manufacturing lab was destroyed. Moving on to the north of Israel, there were 6 different incidences in the last 24 hours in which Hezbollah launched different rockets and RPGs, or anti-tank missiles, towards Israel and towards IDF outposts. There was specifically a direct hit in the town of Shlomi, and there were rockets that targeted the areas of Matar and the Upper Galilee as well. The IDF reported to have retaliated with artillery and different airstrikes. In addition, speaking from Lebanon, one of Hamas's senior leaders, Osama Hamdan, stated today, I'm quoting, "The battle is just beginning, and what we have in store for the enemy is far greater." I only mention this because it is unclear if Hamdan is trying to relate to opening a second front from Lebanon, or if Hamas is planning more surprises from the Gaza Strip or the West Bank. Moving on to the regional developments, there were missiles today sent towards Israel from Yemen that were intercepted. In addition, it was reported that 2 days ago, a U.S. destroyer in the Red Sea intercepted a drone that was launched from Yemen to Israel. The Houthi rebels today announced that they had sent several ballistic missiles towards Israel, adding that they are also searching for Israeli ships in the Red Sea that are going to be targeted. In addition, there was a very interesting report today in Reuters referring to the meeting between the leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, and Iran's supreme leader, Khamenei, several weeks ago. The report states that Khamenei told the leader of Hamas that Iran will not join the war since it was not told about it in advance. And while Iran will offer political and moral support, it will not be involved physically. In addition, Hamas member also told Reuters that Khamenei asked Ismail Haniyeh to silence the Hamas calls to constantly pressure Hezbollah to throw its full weight into the game, and that Hezbollah as well, operatives in Hezbollah added, "We were surprised and woke up one day to a war." After these reports were released, Hamas denied that any of this was actually said. However, this really coincides with the pressure that Hamas was leveling on Hezbollah to join the war, and how that pressure suddenly died out a week or two ago. Moving on to the political and general trends that occurred, there's increasing fractures being noted within Israel's government. So Israel's government was a very hawkish right-wing government, and there's been massive protest against it for the last 10 months. Then when the war broke out, another party, one of the main opposition parties led by Benny Gantz, joined the government in order to, quote-unquote, try to balance it out. And there's more and more reports that there's fractures within the actual right-wing elements of the government against Netanyahu. Today it was reported that Dani Danon of the Likud stated that if the government does not finish the job and overthrow Hamas, many in the Likud will not be happy and will turn their anger towards Netanyahu. The speaker of the Jewish Power Party stated today that after the war, the government will have to resign. Excuse me. The head of the opposition in Israel, Yair Lapid, today called upon the Likud to depose Netanyahu and form a new government. This is very interesting. The leader of the opposition is not saying we need to have a new party run the government. He's just trying to sow fractures within the Likud. And in addition, Galiti Starat-Abrian, who's also a Likud member, is a former minister who resigned when the war broke out, was corresponding with someone, and that was leaked. And I'm quoting, "Netanyahu's days are numbered." And she added, "He has a top political interest to come back with a victory. That is why I'm not worried that he will have other considerations in the war. However, after the war, his days are numbered." In other political developments, the UN Security Council today called for a several-day pause in humanitarian aid in the Gaza Strip, as well as an unconditional release of all Israeli hostages. The United States, United Kingdom, and Russia abstained in this vote, and thus it passed with 12 countries voting for it. Israel heavily condemned this vote. It called upon the UN Security Council to condemn Hamas and call for the unconditional release of hostages while ensuring that a different security reality will be created in the Gaza Strip. And finally, moving on to some future speculations regarding what will happen in the Gaza Strip, several Israeli members of Knesset proposed a plan in which they would facilitate Palestinian refugees emigrating to countries that are willing to accept them. Now, this plan was specifically proposed not by the most hawkish elements in the government. In fact, it was proposed by a member of the opposition as well as a member of the coalition. They later clarified that they were not suggesting forced immigration of Palestinians, but rather that, like with any other war zone, any country that's willing to accept refugees, Israel should try to facilitate to allow Palestinians to choose where they want to live. In addition, Nissim Vaturi, who is a member of the Likud and a deputy speaker of the House, stated that he supports the idea of forced immigration, adding that reestablishing settlements in the Gaza Strip should be part of Israel's plans. That is my report for the last 48 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.